Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Mattzahmdotcom. This is my garage. This is my 2003 Suzuki Hayabusa. Today we are going to be testing the throttle position sensor. I am running into issues where I'm losing horsepower in the high RPM range. My bike redlines at 11,500 RPM. She's falling off at 9,500 RPM. She should definitely be pulling further. I have a suspicion that it's the fuel pump, but before I go buy anything, I really should try and narrow it down a little bit. So I want to start with the throttle position sensor, make sure the ECU is getting the right readings. All right, we got a 5mm Allen key and a 4mm Allen key. We're going to take off the seat and the gas tank. All right, we got the seat off, we got the tank up. You get them a little closer, see what we're looking at. These are your throttle bodies right here. This right here is your throttle position sensor. There's a resistor in here that measures how far open the blades are. This is your connector. Disconnect there. Alright guys, to do this test you're going to need a voltmeter. I got my cheap little guy here from Advanced Auto. My professional one is at work, but this should get the job done. So we're going to set that to DC. We're going to flick the ignition on. Make sure she's set to run. All right. She's awake. Now, we want 4.5 to 5.5 volts at this blue wire here. You got a blue, yellow, brown, and black. We want to test, we want 5.5 to 4.5 volts from here to ground, and we want the same voltage to the brown and black connector, which is the ground for this circuit. And we are at 5.13 volts, right where we want to be. 5.5 and 5. Let's see. Now we're going to go from the blue to the black and brown, and we're getting the same reading, just about 5.08. All right, so we know the sensor is getting power. All right, guys, the next test we're going to perform here is checking the resistance across the yellow and black wires on the sensor side. Now, as you open the throttle, it changes the resistance in that sensor, and that is part of what the ECU is reading to know how open the throttle is and how much fuel it's demanding. It also reads voltage, so we're going to test both, but first we're going to test the resistance, then we're going to plug it in, turn it on, back probe the other side, check the voltage readings. Now, I don't have three hands, so I have a couple of jumper clips here with alligator clips on both sides. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the black jumper and I'm going to follow the black wire and connect it to that terminal. Clamp it on that terminal there. I'm going to take the red one, follow the yellow wire, and connect it to that terminal there. Now, my black lead to my voltmeter and my red lead to my voltmeter. All right, we're going to turn it to ohms and see what she's reading. Closed throttle position, we have 1.136 kilo ohms. Manual says approximately 1.3. So we're in the neighborhood. Let's see how it changes as we open the throttle here. Now, I'm gonna turn it slowly. That's probably about a quarter throttle there. We're at about 2 kilo ohms. Let's keep on opening it up more. That's almost wide open there. That's wide open right there. We are at 4.13 kilo ohms. The book says approximately 4.5 kilo ohms. So again, we're a little off, but we're in the neighborhood. This is a cheap voltmeter, so I'm not taking those numbers as gospel. We're in the neighborhood, so it looks as though the sensor is doing its job, but there's one more test we got to do here. We're going to be checking for the voltage change as we actuate this. Now, we're going to disconnect all this, plug her back in, and I got one more tool-ish. I don't know if you guys can see. A couple needles. We're going to use these to back probe. Now, what back probing is you look at your connector here. It's together. How am I going to make contact without cutting into it? Well, there's little rubber seals on both sides of the connector. You shove a needle, or they make actual probes, into the back of the connector to make contact. So we are going to be checking for voltage change across the yellow and black and brown wires. So get that in there. Get that one in there, black one. All right. It's not always pretty. Okay. Got my multimeter. I got my alligator clips. I'm gonna go red to yellow, black to black, and brown. Connect to my voltmeter, my multimeter. All right, for this test we need the ignition on. Turn my kill switch on. Hear that fuel pump. All right, now let's check the voltage here. Turn this to volts. What do we got? Book again says we should be looking for about 1.3 volts at closed throttle. We're at about 1.13 volts. It's in the neighborhood. Again, it's a cheap tester or cheap meter. So let's see what happens as we open the throttle. Well, the number goes up nice and steady and quick, smoother than the resistance. Might just be easier to measure the voltage on the meter. And there's wide open throttle, 4.27 volts. Book says neighborhood of 4.3 volts. We're right in the neighborhood. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, considering we know it's getting power, we know there's no short inside, we know that it is changing the resistance properly, and we know that it is changing the voltage properly. This is not my problem. All right, guys, that about does it for today's video. We tested the throttle position sensor on my 2003 Suzuki Hayabusa. That should apply to all Gen 1 Suzuki Hayabusas. As it turns out, mine tested fine, so my problem is elsewhere. I have the suspicion that my fuel pump is the problem. I'm having long cranks after it sits for a while, and I'm running out of horsepower in the high RPM range, which are two symptoms of a bad fuel pump. So the next step would be to test the fuel pump pressure. I'm gonna get my hands on a fuel pressure gauge, and that will be our next video. Thank you guys for watching and checking out my channel. I hope this was really informative for you. If you found it good, please like and subscribe. I plan on making plenty more videos on my Hayabusa, diagnosis, repair, modification, plenty of mods coming up. I have a 1980 CB750F project that's kind of stalled out right now because I've been focused on this Busa, but we'll definitely get some videos in there of that. So again, if you like what you see, like it, subscribe, and there'll be more. We'll see you next time.